Year 5. This week we're getting really stuck in with the Olympic Games, and we've got here all about ancient Greece, which is where the Olympic Games started. We've got a section on the Greek Games. This is a non-chronological report all about the Greek Games. You can see it's got lots of features of a non-chronological report. It's got subheadings, it's got explanations for pictures and diagrams that are in there, and you don't have to read it in any order. Okay. The Greeks believed in the value of sport as training for warfare and as a way of honouring the gods. There were many local sporting competitions, but 4 big athletic festivals attracted men from all over the Greek world. Of these, the most important was the Olympic Games, held every 4 years in the honour of Zeus at Olympia. Now, I've already got a couple of questions from this. First of all, I want to know why it was just men. And secondly, I'm wondering, who is Zeus and what is Olympia? So lots of things I could be researching about. Success in the Games brought honour to the athlete's family and to his hometown. Some successful athletes acquired almost mythical status. What does mythical mean? Wars were suspended to allow people to travel in safety to and from Olympia. It's really interesting, there were no wars. They stopped all wars. I don't know how they did that. Loads of questions. Many beautiful temples and other buildings which provided facilities for athletes and spectators have been excavated there. It means dug up under the, if you're an archaeologist. The Games went on into Roman times, coming to an end late in the 4th century. In Athens, there were also 4 yearly games, called Panathenaic Games, held in honour of Athena as part of her religious festival, and they were an important public holiday. Discipline in sport was strict and breaking the rules was punished severely. So again, I'm really interested in this idea that it went on all the way from Greek times into Roman times and into the 4th century. To be a great place to make a timeline to work out when all this was happening. So now I've read the introduction, I'm going to look at different things. I'm going to read about champions here. The 4th century, this 4th century BC, so that's like before Common Era, that's before 0, bronze statue of a boy jockey and his victorious horse show the difficulties of racing in ancient Greece. Riding bareback and without stirrups, jockeys were usually paid servants of the owners of the horse. Wow, it sounds really dangerous. And training time. Wrestling, although popular, was regarded as one of the most dangerous of Greek sports. Tripping your opponent up was permitted, but biting or gouging out his eyes was strictly forbidden. The man on the left of this statue base is in a racing start position, and the man on the right is testing his javelin. You can see on that picture. So one of the rules for this sport was that you were allowed to trip your opponent up, but you were not allowed to bite or gouge out his eyes. Oh, good. When you're making up your own Olympic game this week, you'll be able to think about what are the rules. Prize pots. This boxing scene from 336 BC, this one here, was painted on a special kind of olive oil pot given as a prize to victorious athletes at the Festival of Athena in Athens. Known as Panathenaic vases, they always had a painting of Athena on one side and a painting of the event on the other. Here, 2 boxers with rippling muscles are fighting each other, wearing, instead of boxing gloves, leather thongs wrapped around their fists. Now that's a great example of a passage that has mostly facts, but it has an opinion in there too. See if you can spot it. It's when they're talking about their muscles. How do they describe their muscles? Here it says they're rippling. Now that's an opinion, isn't it? Because I don't necessarily see that when I look at this picture. So it's there to help you imagine. It's not a fact. The Olympic spirit. The spirit of the Olympic Games has greatly inspired artists. This 19th century German duotone depicts naked athletes exercising against a background of classical columns. Right, look at the picture and see if you can work out what they mean by duotone. What colours are used there? Yes, a duotone means it's got two tones. The pentathlon, I've decided to jump over here now because a non-chronological report I can read in any order. This scene shows athletes taking part in the pentathlon, an event which included discus and javelin throwing, jumping, wrestling and running. The man at the back holds a pair of jumping weights like the ones shown below. So I think this must be the jumping weight. And I'm wondering what this is, because this looks familiar to me. Torchlight, an Olympic runner carrying the Olympic flame at the Seoul Olympics in 1988. Where's Seoul? See if you can find it on a map. In the Athenian Games, relay races with torches took place after dark, the winning team lighting a fire on altars to Zeus or Athena. A few people to think about there. Who's Zeus? Who's Athena? The first modern Olympics were held in 1896 in Athens. They were organised by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, a Frenchman, who was inspired by the ideals of the ancient Olympic Games. So what do we think the ideals of the ancient Olympic Games might be? What were the things that they thought this is what all men should be? Now, we've already talked a bit about boxing. We've got javelin, which is a throwing sport. And we talked about running. And discus, another throwing sport. But there's one here we haven't talked about yet. Longer jumps. Athletes taking part in the long jump used stone or lead jumping weights. This Roman example had grooves so that it could be gripped firmly. Holding the weights, athletes probably threw their arms backwards to give themselves extra propulsion to take off. Now, like when you throw and you put it back first, so you can propel yourself forwards. They use the word probably in there. Probably. Why don't they know? What do you think? And the last thing I'm going to read about the Delfy Stadium. The stadium at Delphi is in the highest part of the ancient city. The stone starting grooves on the track survive, as well as many of the seats, especially where they were cut into the mountainside. The stadium could hold 7,000 spectators. So it talks about Delphi. I wonder where Delphi is. It doesn't tell me. I wonder if you can infer or guess what country it might be in based on the text.